Welcome, everyone. I, Deputy Council President Tola Martz, call the January 27th, 2026 City Council Services, Safety, and Parks Committee to order. I'm hearing an echo. Something's turned on that shouldn't be turned on. Excused absences, Chair Walsh has an excused absence this evening, and we have a new committee member to my right, Council Member Kevin Nichols. Welcome to the party, pal. All right. Next item on the agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity to provide general comments. There will also be an opportunity for public comments on each agenda item after the presentation and the committee's question and answer period. Comments can be made in person or virtually. Those who have signed up in advance will be called on first. If you are joining us virtually and would like to make comments, please raise your virtual hand or send the host a chat message. If you're on a phone, press *3. If you have joined by computer or smartphone, look for a hand icon. I do not see any members of the public in the room with us. Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak or indicated a desire to speak this evening?
Not at this time, Chair.
Thank you very much. As a reminder, written comments can be submitted at any time to citycouncil@issaquah.gov. That's not 12 Sequoia, because we're not changing that, just the Issaquah.gov. Moving on, next up is approval of minutes. And what we have been doing lately is just sort of, I don't know if the technical term is assenting to them, but just basically saying, do we have any concerns with the minutes as presented? Otherwise, we will just consider them accepted. Any concerns? No. Great. Clerk, if you consider those minutes accepted. We have three items this evening, and the first item we have is COM 0202, Issaquah Housing Investment Pool Funding Recommendation. And this is going to be presented by Alexis Fitzsimmons, our Economic Development and Housing Manager. Welcome, Alexis.
Also with me today is Patrick Tippy from Arch. He's the investments manager, and he helps, Arch helps the city go through this, create this IHIP program, and also go through the process of the projects and evaluating them. So the purpose today is to review the projects that have submitted applications for IHIP funding in 2025. We're going to present what the administration award recommendations are, which are $383,000 to Leo condominiums at Trailhead Project and $1.5 million to the KCHA Trailhead Project for the creation of 163 units of affordable housing at or below 60% AMI. And we'd also like to receive input for any additional information necessary regarding recommendations and awards in the contracting approach that we have for you today. So as far as direction needed, questions or input requests from the administration to the committee regarding these projects. Do you have any questions on why we did recommend the projects and why we didn't recommend the Park by Vintage project? And also any input in our recommendation to authorize Arch to enter and manage the award contract with the direction with Leo. And then also, does the committee request any additional information to consider approval at the City Council on February 24th? Oh, I apologize. I thought we fixed that. So just a reminder, IHIP, the IHIP program is the Inclusive Housing Investment Pool. It was created in December 2023 by City Council and it adopted the following funding priorities, which is the preservation of existing affordable housing, transit-oriented development near frequent transit service, and community-based affordable housing. Also on this slide, you kind of see the housing continuum of, where we see the need for housing in the city of Issaquah. And it goes everywhere, from everything from emergency shelters also all the way to affordable rental and ownership. So the funding requirements for the program, it's to serve households up to 60% AMI, and funds must serve the following populations: persons with behavioral health disabilities, veterans, senior citizens, persons who are homeless or at risk of being homeless, persons with intellectual disabilities or physical disabilities, and domestic violence survivors. As far as funding availability goes, in 2025 and 2026, the affordable housing adopted budget with an annual revenue of expected to be $2.3 million and approximate expenditures to be $1.3 million. You can see in the chart below that every year between 2021 and 2024, we received more than $2 million from the 1590 and 1406 funds that fund the IHIP program. And anticipated allocation in 2025 was $1 million plus, and the same in 2026. To break down kind of a little further, from 2023 to 2025, our actual received revenue was over $7 million, and our actual expenses were just over $3.3 million. That's from 2023 to 2025. These expenses included emergency housing program, behavioral health, and executive staff, as well as the Arch Funding Trust Fund. In 2026, which is our current year, our revenue anticipated and what we have budgeted for is $2.325 million, and our anticipated expenses that we're budgeted for is $608,388. This does not include the projects that you are being presented to today. These projects require an amendment to the budget. The only known expenses that we had for the 2026 budget were those for executive staff and behavioral health staff, so that's what's included in the budget. As far as the application process goes, combined funders from the east side that support Arch submit applications, and Arch staff reviews those, does an initial review of those. The committee, there's a review committee that includes the Economic Vitality Commission, city staff, and Arch staff. We meet and discuss the projects, make recommendations, and then it comes to the administration to discuss more fully, and then to you at the Services, Safeties, and Parks Committee, then moving on to City Council for the final decision. The applications and recommendations that we have this year are for the KCHA Trailhead Apartments, at which we are recommending for approval, the Leo condominiums at the Trailhead Apartments, which we are also recommending for approval, and the Park by Vintage, which we are not recommending for approval. At this point in time, I'm going to have Patrick come up and talk a little bit about the projects.
Thank you very much, Alexis. Chair, Councilmember Nicholas, thank you very much for having me here today. Really excited to bring these recommendations to you all that were reviewed and recommended by the Economic Vitality Commission and the City Administration. I'm Patrick Tippie, the Investments Manager at Arch, and work to underwrite and help draft the staff reports to analyze the merits of the projects against the priorities that were adopted by Council a few years back. The first project that we're here to recommend here today is recommend the full funding request of $1.5 million from the King County Housing Authority to develop the Trailhead Apartments. This is a development that's been under consideration for many years now in partnership with the city. King County Housing Authority has worked to relocate telecom from the site across from the Central Issaquah Transit Center to create this multi-phase development. And the building that KCHA will be leading the development on will include a ground floor called the Opportunity Center that the City of Issaquah will own. And then above that will be 156 units. 2 of those are going to be for on-site management. The rest would be affordable and serving people from 40 to 60% of the area median income. King County Housing Authority has not identified a specific IHIP target population as required by statute at this point in time. They are wanting to partner with the City of Issaquah as Issaquah is identifying who the tenant would be of the Opportunity Center and wanting to align target residents to align with the services. So if it ends up being a service provider to serve people with disabilities or people that may need behavioral health services, they would want to align that service so that way there's on-site connection for the services for folks. These units will be 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units and a significant amount of parking available on site, 172 stalls. The next slide.
Can you wait just a second?
Yes,
Can you
please.
go back? So on this subject, can you go back one slide? So on the subject of target population, so how, I understand the idea that we want to wait until we see Opportunity Center tenants and then see how we want to meet the required target populations. How would that work time-wise, like in the timeline of this development?
Yeah, great question. So in the staff recommendation memo in front of you, there are special conditions at which we would put forward, and those, hopefully you all would adopt those, and then subsequently council would adopt those. Those become contracting conditions, and
I
within
see.
that,
Yep.
we would require they designate that before the contract is drafted and executed. So that would be, the city would be able to reserve its right to move forward in advancing funds and signing the contract until that was designated and appropriately contracted through a regulatory agreement.
Good, just not because I have any concern that people won't keep it in mind. I just wanted to see from a project management steps where it gets in the system, and you just explained it, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, happy to do that. So I did mention some of the special conditions. One, I wanted to point out that $1.5 million award will be structured as a deferred loan, meaning that there'll be a 55-year term. It'll be amortized over that 55-year period. And there's other costs that they have to repay earlier in that 55-year term. And so repayments will begin in year 16 through that 55-year period. So it's small payments on that $1.5 million loan, but there will be repayments coming back to the city for this fund. Wanted to identify some of the rationale here based on the priorities that council has identified for this project. It's a long-standing partnership with the city and proceeding right across the street from the King County Metro Transit Center here in central Issaquah. And so this aligns with the transit-oriented development nature of the priorities. It's also a partnership with many other community partners. The city will be the owner of the ground floor space. We'll talk next about the partnership with Life Enrichment Options, known as LEO, to be providing a separate ownership condo within that for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so there is a lot of partnership with local service providers and local agencies. They're committed to serving IHIP-aligned populations, and it really leverages a significant amount of money from other sources, which is just goes to grow the impact of the IHIP fund. And I'll move on to the next recommended project here. This is the Life Enrichment Opportunities condominiums in the Trailhead. This is within the previous development. The LEO would own 7 bedrooms within that, 1 for a live-in caregiver, 6 then would be for individuals earning 30% and 40% of the area median income, all with intellectual and developmental disabilities. LEO focuses on providing group homes for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Most of the programs to date have been in single-family homes, and they're really excited about this opportunity to be in a larger multifamily complex. They'll have interchanging doors between them so they can have shared meals as a community, but then also have some private space, but then also be in community with the other 156 families living in the apartment building. So they're really excited about this opportunity here. This project, we're recommending that this would be, the award would be made in the form of a secured grant, meaning that so long as they perform and serve households at the income levels prescribed in the other contract terms, that the funds would not be repaid, whereas the Housing Authority has a higher income level and it has more of ability to repay that loan. We're also recommending that the funding award amount to be $383,000, and that is more than they requested from Issaquah through the IHIP program. And the Economic Vitality Commission recommended that amount. As we are considering the award, we learned that King County was not going to be able to fund the amount, and so the committee recommended that the IHIP program fill the gap the county couldn't fund to continue the project advancing. And it has been successful in receiving, I believe, a $1.4 million award from the State Department of Commerce as well to support those households with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So again, another strong piece of leverage to leverage the IHIP program that the city of Issaquah has advanced here. Other strengths of this is that it is, again, aligned well with transit-oriented, in a transit-oriented location. It is Leo is a Issaquah-based service organization serving many individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and just really excited to get this development kicked off within this larger KCHA development. Then the final project that we received an application for and the committee administration are not recommending for an award is the development known as Park by Vintage. They requested $1 million. The location of this was to acquire 2 existing office buildings that had previously been Costco office space, just to the north of I-90 there. The intent would be to convert those 2 office buildings into residential, creating nearly 260 homes for households at 50% and 60% of the area median income. The developers chose the site for adaptive reuse based on its proximity to retail and other stores nearby to the state park. However, the committee did not recommend moving this project forward. There's a few items there that the developer is currently working through a lawsuit with the state attorney general's office along with their property manager, and that was likely going to inhibit them from securing the rest of the capital funding needed to convert these office buildings into residential in a timely manner. And so that was one of the rationale there. And also the owner operator didn't identify any local service partners for this. They were planning to serve veterans, but didn't necessarily have a referral plan or a way that they would be plugging in to serve the Issaquah community. So we're here presenting to you here today. If recommended to move forward, we'll be coming back February 23rd. Is that correct? The council meeting? And then if that's the recommendation of this group and council, that resolution would instruct city administration to ask Arch to administer the contract through other contracting mechanisms that we have and using the Arch investment staff to do the ongoing compliance for the awards.
Thank you, Patrick. So we're on our last slide here, and what we need from you today is just direction. We would like for this item to go on the consent agenda at the council meeting on February 23rd. And so we'd like to entertain any additional questions or requests for information that you have now in order to make that happen.
Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you. Got quite a few questions. I saved them all to the end. I think I'll start with the questions about Park, since we just discussed that. On the face of it, it looks like a good, interesting project. It clearly seems less well developed, less mature than the Trailhead project. Naturally so, the Trailhead project's been around for a while. A lot of the problems that were identified seem to me like they're essentially future risks that may or may not materialize. So I've got 2 questions on that. First is, are we working with these folks in any additional capacity to help them reduce those risks? So one of the risks was identified was that they don't have a partner for some of the services they want to offer. That's something that we have experienced with the TOD as well. Do we have any experience or expertise there that we could offer to try to reduce that risk for them? And then the second question on Park is, when we structure these as either grants or loans, I guess, can they be contingent on other things, such as, for example, resolution of litigation, securing of future funding, et cetera, so that we could help that project to appear more viable to other investors who might want to participate without unnecessarily assuming excess risk for public funds?
Yes, so I'll answer the second question first. We have the ability through the contract process to put any stipulations on that funding, that as long as it's within the legislative allowance. And we have a pretty broad berth to be able to do that. And in the staff report, you'll see a lot of the stipulations on some of the other 2 projects that Arch has helped us formulate when we are looking at the analyzation of those projects and what risks there are. As far as expertise to be able to make connections with developer to community organizations. Yes, we absolutely do have that and would do that. I think that the main risk that we saw here was the state's attorney litigation that was outstanding. And that was a bit untenable for the Community Advisory Board. And so that's one of the major reasons why we kind of push this. Is if they're able to resolve that, they can reapply next year. Our rejection of their project this year does not prevent them from applying again in the future when they have these other issues resolved. And in the meantime, if they're amenable to us participating and providing expertise to help connect them with community organizations, we are very much willing to do that.
Okay, all right. Next, very specific question. For the TOD, how is the 172 parking spaces number arrived at?
So I believe that's probably a requirement of zoning and the number of spaces required by our zoning.
Okay, so no variance is requested, do you know?
I don't think so.
I believe the development has a development agreement.
Yeah, you can go to the mic. Either one.
I believe there's a development agreement on the site because there's a second phase there that prescribes total number of parking stalls between the two sites, and it has been important for the Housing Authority to have sufficient parking available in order to have a strongly competitive property for marketability and achieve the occupancy that it needs in order to service the permanent debt that they will have on that property.
Okay, so this is a number that the Housing Authority wanted and was happy with, is that fair?
From my understanding, they're happy about that parking stall count, and I think that it's important for them, especially having a number of 2- and 3-bedroom units, to make sure they've got parking, even though it is adjacent to the transit center. It was important for them to have at least a 1-to-1 parking ratio.
Okay, all right. Let me back up. Let's see. Going at the funding stack for the Leo project, so there was 191,500 that was not approved by King County. Can you elaborate on why did King County decline that, and is there anything to be learned from that?
Yeah, the county really had limited sources of funds, and each funding resource they had very specific eligible uses for those, and this development did not align well with any of the eligible uses that they had available. For this year, they had specific dollars that needed to be jail diversion, or needed to be spent in South King County, or to be debt generating funds that their statute required the bond that pays for them to have debt service. And so this project wasn't eligible because it doesn't have ability to pay debt service. And so that for those reasons, they didn't advance the project this year. They have funded the Leo project in the past, including the acquisition that IHIP supported a year ago to purchase a single-family home in central Issaquah.
Okay, great, that's good. Let's see. Another detailed question on Leo. So I saw in there, so on our staff report, page 3, there's a note that there's earnest money due at Capital Finance Clearing. So this is May. It's 120,000. And then it also notes that the schedule is driven by the overall King County Housing Authority timeline. Are there any kind of existential risks here, especially for that earnest money, if King County Housing Authority's construction timeline slips? How dependent on what risks are associated with that might impact the ability of the project to proceed and any funding that has been committed here?
Yeah, I think one of the rationales why it's an earnest money deposit and not a purchase of the condo is that the condominium will not be formally declared, creating those 3 units, until after the physical structure is built and is able to be surveyed and then have the meets and bounds prescribed to it. So we would then want that legal description to be included in our legal documents to secure that space for them. And so the structure and partnership between Leo and KCHA is that earnest money deposit is a good faith deposit demonstrating Leo has all the sources needed to purchase the whole of the acquisition, and they have secured those sources through the state, Arch, and Issaquah funds. And then those funds will be in place ready to fulfill that contract as the structure is completed. And so Leo will take ownership when the structure is completed of their 7 bedrooms in those 3 condo units.
Okay, all right, I think I understand that. Next, so switching gears to the TOD. Just trying to track kind of where the money is flowing here. So as far as I can tell, there's no proceeds from the market rate side that are put into the funding stack for the affordable side. I may have just misread it, so if I'm wrong, just correct me there. But can you just, first at a high level, kind of give me an overview of what's the financial relationship between these two phases? And where does that money get accounted for if there is a relationship there?
Yeah. The King County Housing Authority provided to us a third-party cost estimate for the whole of their development of the structure they're building, as well as the site costs and the design, permitting, and other costs, including a delineation of how those costs will be attributed between the 4 different ownership entities on the site. Mm-hmm. So those being the KCHA 156 unit, the market rate portion, the 7-bedroom Leo condo, and the City of Issaquah's Opportunity Center. And so costs for site development, permitting, design have been based on total square footage, floor area ratio for those, and then the cost for the building then is borne by each of the individual owners. So the market rate portion of the building is not contributing to the capital stack for the King County Housing Authority portion, but it is paying its full cost for its building and its development.
Okay, and then is this is, I'm sure the wrong word to use, but is it subsidizing in some ways? Like how is the, if it's not directly in the capital stack, how is the market rate, the sale of those market rate units helping the affordable side of things?
Yeah, I think it's helping by defraying the cost of the permitting of the design to get to the place where they can permit the whole of the site. And so there is some efficiency there of having the same civil architectural team doing the layout of the whole of the site. It's also reimbursing KCHA. They've been carrying the development costs of this for the last 8 years. And so with the purchase of that, they're being reimbursed for the upfront working capital they've invested in the development of the site. But that is not paying for, the market rate portion is not subsidizing the vertical construction of the KCHA affordable units.
Can I just clarify on that? The market rate side is, as a project, disconnected from this, right? Like it could get built in 24 months or 60 months or whenever, right? Like it is not, the development of the workforce housing site is not dependent on the progress of the market rate side, right?
The affordable portion can move forward on their own timeline. They are not dependent on the market rate portion to advance. However, there is something in the permitting that has vested the whole of the site, and I don't have all the details related to that, so they are related in the permitting, but the Housing Authority portion now has the entitlements they need to proceed on their schedule, and the market rate portion can proceed on their schedule, and I understand there is a partnership in the works to make sure there's coordination and no conflicts in the construction time period, but we just have less insight into that market rate developer's schedule and permitting status.
Sure, I just wanted to inject that into the conversation you were having with Councilmember Nichols about the financing, that there's nothing on the affordable side that is dependent on the timing of the market rate side. Correct.
Yeah, that was helpful because I was wondering if it's going to effectively need it. Okay, last question. This is mainly just for my own education, but you've got so for the TOD, there's a loan, and Leo's structures a grant. How do you decide whether it's a grant or a loan?
Yeah, we look at the ability of the project's operating pro forma to repay the loans. Obviously, we like to, as a city, support affordable housing, and when we can, get the funds repaid. Because the Leo development is serving households at the 30% area median income level, the rents and the operating subsidy that they're collecting from that is enough to cover the operating costs, but not to service any debt. And that's why they do need capital grants from all the public funders in order to create these units, whereas the rents that are collected at the 40 and mostly 60% AMI level for the King County Housing Authority does allow them to generate enough revenue to service a tax-exempt bond that's covering a large portion of the project. And then as the rents do escalate over 15, 20, 30, 50 years, which will be the term of our loan, they will have more ability to have cash flow to service that debt, which is a typical financing tool used by housing authorities. And that's a typical loan that Arch administers with Issaquah and all the other Arch member cities' housing trust fund investments.
Okay, yeah, thank you, appreciate that. And that's all for me.
All right, I've already asked my questions because I did not wait until the end. So we have 4 questions in front of us as a group. If you are comfortable, Councilmember Nichols, we can just address all 4. If you want to give me your thoughts on all 4 right now, I don't think we have to go item by item on this unless you want to.
I think I have to go item by item.
Okay, well, item
Not gonna
1
process
is,
them all, yeah.
does the committee have any questions or input on the administration's recommendation to fund $383,000 to Leo condominiums at Trailhead Project and $1.5 million to the KCHA Trailhead Project for the creation of 163 units of affordable housing?
I think this is,
Question 1.
no, I do not.
Nor do I. Do we have any questions or input on the administration's recommendation not to fund the Park by Vintage project?
Yes.
Okay.
I think my input would be to strongly encourage active collaboration with this home builder to help de-risk the project and make it more viable for the next funding cycle.
Thank you.
I think
That's all.
That's a great recommendation. Yes, this fund will continue to provide monies, so yeah, I plus one that. Does the committee have any questions or input on the administration's recommendation to authorize Arch to enter and manage the award contract direction with Leo?
Nope.
Nor do I. Does the committee request additional information to consider approval at City Council on February 23rd?
No.
I have a question about the administration has a preference for consent agenda, is that right?
It was on the consent agenda last year, and so.
Oh, well, there we go. I'm okay using the historical precedent, but I'm open to thoughts.
Yeah, I'm okay with that on the consent agenda. Will the full presentation be included in the consent agenda for anybody who's, yeah.
Not typically, but it can be.
Please do, because we have a new council member, and
Okay.
Councilmember Adair, it would be great to get those materials in front of him. I mean, I'm sure he will pore over this committee's, video and watch it and everything, but on the odd chance that he doesn't, it would be great to have it in the full packet for the 23rd.
I mean,
Yeah,
if the council chooses, they can pull it from consent agenda the day of the meeting, so.
Understood, but it'd be good to have it in there and point him to it.
Yeah, and I'm not expecting this to be contentious. It's more just for information because there's some useful background, especially for something like Park, for example, where I think it might not be as well understood.
Okay,
So.
thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it. Ms. Miss Fitzsimmons for that. Yep, sorry about that. COM 0206 is next. Oh, I did not, do we have any members of the public online?
No, Chair, we do not.
I dodged one there. COM 0206, Park Rules and Regulations, presented by our own Parks Director, Jeff Watling.
Thank you, Deputy Council President Martz. Good evening, Councilmember Nichols. Jeff Watling here. Forgive me as I think I can do it. Let's see how it works. Awesome. Is it sharing? Shall I sing while I'm doing this? All right. Thank you. And with that, good evening. Here tonight to really introduce, have an introductory discussion with you all, both of you, around the park rules and regulations within our Issaquah Municipal Code, the IMC, and the work plan, somewhat long-awaited work plan we have this year of reviewing and updating those rules and regulations. Some direction needed tonight is really your initial thoughts and guidance to help shape this work. Two main areas of guidance that we're seeking tonight. The first really related to content. Are the current and additional areas, topics that should be considered, are they enough, or should we be exploring some other areas or topics? Along with that content, would appreciate any feedback or thoughts you have on process and the work that we're going to be doing with the park board, as well as general public outreach as we accomplish this work. Oh, did I just freeze? Okay. Lag is completed. All right, some background on this. The park rules that do exist within our IMC reside within Title IX of the Municipal Code. You'll notice these in two sections. IMC 9.25 was last updated in 1985. That was a little while ago. Within that code, if you look at that, there are 6 rules that are addressed in there, ranging from litter to livestock to vehicles, vandalism, and alcohol. One section down in IMC 9.26, that was last updated in 2000. That includes 2 park rules pertaining to park hours as well as camping. To speak to the need or the interest we have, this collection of park rules within the IMC is far from complete. When you look at all of the vast array of uses that we're trying to manage within our park system. Not all current or emerging park issues are really addressed in that existing, the existing content within those two areas. The opportunity this provides us is to really go about creating a more complete set of rules. And be able to have those rules codified and transparent and able to support signage and park rules we have within the parks, to making sure we're really communicating clearly what the expectation is for visitors and residents as they use our parks, trails, and open space. This work will certainly support in keeping our city parks and trails the welcoming, safe, and clean spaces that we all want them to be. An opportunity we have to really look ahead, both addressing current needs but emerging park uses. This work will be done both internally and externally, gives us a real opportunity to collaborate, not only within park operations and recreation staff, but our human services team within the department. Obviously the police department, city attorney will be very involved in this work to make sure that we draft and bring back to you a more thorough and updated set of park rules and regulations. I would note executive's office will be part of that as well. With the current vacancy we have within our department, Dale Markey Crimp is going to be assisting me in this work as well. And then the opportunity we really have externally to engage not only with Park Board, with the public as we develop these updated rules through the upcoming months. These next 2 slides are not meant to be an all-inclusive list or absolutes that we're going to have, but really just wanted to share with you some examples, some types of park rules that we might want to consider and that we will consider through this work. Many of these that exist in some of our neighboring cities in their park rules. Areas of sales of goods and services. This was include everything from concessionaire agreements we might have within our parks to food trucks and the allowance of food trucks. Permits, everything from field rentals to community events offered by third-party partners. Rules around animals and pets. A number of rules around motor vehicles, where parking is allowed, what the speed for motor vehicles are within our parks, where they're not allowed and allowed. Some rules around trail use. Rules that really support the broad use and uses we have on our many trails. Rules around tents, shelters, and camping, everything from overnight camping, but also just how tents and shelters can be used throughout our parks on any given day, just making sure that we have, we're providing, again, safe, welcoming spaces. Swimming and water access, where that's allowed and not allowed, litter or waste. Remote control models, things including drones. Where is that allowed and not allowed, and how are we managing those emerging and growing uses? Rules around fireworks, firearms, weapons. Some other areas that we really want to consider and look at, amplification of both music and just PA systems in general, how we're making sure one's use of our park is not infringing on other groups that are using our parks. Park hours, interference with park or trail use, damage to property and or wildlife, building fires, removal of public property within our park system, not only littering sort of on our properties and on land, but also dumping in water. Some rules around solicitation we want to consider. And then lastly, rules related to tobacco, alcohol, and other controlled substances within our parks. Again, not all-inclusive, not absolutes, but certainly areas that we think transparent and clear rules would be really beneficial. So how do we want to go about this work? Some timing and next steps. These next 2 months, February and March, we'll be digging in a little deeper with the Park Board. We already introduced this topic to them last year. Met with Park Board just last night and reminded them of the work that we have coming up these next few months, where we really want to start diving in, doing some public outreach, reviewing other municipal codes for best practices, then spend the following 2 months in April and May beginning to draft some updated park rules, again, including some engagement. Our goal will be a Park Board recommendation by the end of May at their May meeting, and then the opportunity to bring those recommended park rules back to you, Services, Safety, and Parks Committee in June for your consideration and moving those forward. So,
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Director
go ahead.
Whiteland, could you go back for a second?
you bet.
And then what?
And then what? So, with your recommendation, go to full council for adoption sometime this summer, and then
Okay.
implementing those new rules.
Gotcha. So, so to full council, hopefully, I mean, if we move expeditiously by July.
Exactly,
Before the
exactly.
August break.
Yep, yep.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. So again,
I think Councilmember Nichols has a question.
Just
Oh,
on,
yeah.
on the timeline, this looks overall, this looks great. I'm glad some of these things are being revisited. Timeline looks pretty good and fast. I just wanted to ask if there is some, we're in the middle of a legislative session, and there is some state level legislation specifically on camping, so HB 2489. I'm not, yeah, I wouldn't want to predict what will happen, but I just wondered if you had taken that into consideration, because if that passes, it would likely considerably change the scope of what could be discussed with regards to camping, and I would expect that to be a considerable topic that would warrant a lot of discussion. So given that that's March 12th at the latest, and that you're talking about park boards in February and March, does that timeline, or is that being considered, or we just cross that bridge when we come to it? What's the thinking?
No, great question. Yes, our lobbyist and executive office has made us aware of that. We're tracking that. Myself and the city attorney have provided comment on that. We'll be prepared, should that move through, to make sure that our park rules are consistent with whatever state legislation comes through. So,
I think what I'm really trying to ask is, I suspect the park board would want to weigh in on that topic. And if they're preempted by other legislation, their efforts in weighing in February may.
no, thank you for that, Councilmember Nichols. The Park Board touch will not just be in February. So even as we go through April and May, Park Board will be very involved in that,
Okay.
in that work. And then, we would ask, and really, how we really appreciate the work of the Park Board as an advisory group. We'll get their recommendation there in May, hopefully, before it comes back to you.
Okay, so that still works.
yep.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
So again, any direction or feedback you can have in helping us shape this work, both related to content, in regards to any current or additional areas or topics you'd like us to address or pay close attention to, and then lastly, any feedback on process, which you already gave us some. So thanks so much.
Other questions before we move to the deliberative phase?
No further questions. No.
Now I'll ask the clerk if there is anyone online, much less anyone online potentially interested in providing comment.
No, Chair, not at this time.
Thank you. Okay, so to deliberation. Councilmember Nichols, do you want to go first, or shall I? I have, around this, so I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and I said that every decision that we make up here on the dais is always parsing the line between allowing the community to manifest its will and protecting the rights of the individual. And parks always winds up right in the middle of that. It's not the classic things that, people tend to yell at each other over the internet, but they, but these are all very important topics, right? And some of the things that you've brought up are classic examples of that, right? So as we go to deliberate this, I am just going to ask as an advance, I always like to understand what neighboring communities are doing. So I ask your forbearance that as you see things that will be potentially, I can guarantee you there will be things here that people will feel strongly about, and there may be people who feel strongly that we're making the wrong decision. And when that time comes, I really want to understand how, our peer cities, Kirkland, Bellevue, Redmond, Renton, Kent, how they're all addressing these things. So I'm just putting that bug in your ear right now, because people love their parks in Issaquah, right?
Yep, thank you for that. Absolutely. Yeah, that search for best practices will be really important. Thanks.
And important if we have to make a tough decision to say, that we understand how it's effectively working or not working in cities like our own in the region. And then I'm looking forward to, the park board's input. It's a dirty secret that, or a not so secret that, we take the boards and under advisement, and then we make the decisions that we make. But I think that more times than not, we are heavily influenced by how our boards work. So I'm eager to see the work output from the park board.
That's great.
Councilmember Nichols?
I would say one of the things I would particularly like to see from the park board before they come back to us would be a look at, I think, all of these topics, honestly, that they're presented with from an equity perspective. Our parks are our commons. There are many different people that they need to serve, and I would hope that we can have some good deliberation on that and get some feedback before it comes back to us. As far as the overall topics that are up for discussion themselves, I think that it looks pretty comprehensive. I'm sure that there will be others that will be brought up, and they'll have that opportunity. So that's my only, I suppose, deliberative comment on that.
And I will add one more shameless self-plug. When the city of Snoqualmie looked at their drone policies. I actually went and worked with them on that personally
Great.
as a FAA UAS license holder. Had quite a bit of familiarity with what the law says and what's possible and whatnot. So I don't, I'm not going to go sit in on a Parks Board meeting, but I just want to let you know that I have some experience at that if you ever want to talk about how how it works with the FAA and municipalities and what can and can't be done by legislation. There's weird combinations of things.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I will take you up on that.
Do we have any other feedback on these questions, Councilmember Nichols?
No, otherwise I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation.
Yep.
Do you have everything you need from us?
I do. This is terrific. Thank you. We really look forward to rolling up our sleeves with this work, so thanks.
Great. I'll just point out that the last time that first set of ordinances were addressed, I didn't have a driver's license, so.
Okay. I think I just barely had one, so thank you.
All right, thank you, Director Watling. And the last item we have this evening is COM 0207 2026 Arts Grant Recommendations from, presented by Amy Dukes, our Arts Program Administrator.
Oh my gosh, what a tripping hazard for me. I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, I have to. Good evening. Good evening, Councilmember Nichols and Deputy Council President Martz. Thanks for having me. I'm Amy Dukes, the Cultural Arts Manager for the city, and I am here tonight to present to you the 2026 Arts Grant recommendations straight from the Arts Commission. So my purpose here tonight is to present the proposed arts grants. And the direction we need is just your direction on the advancement of the awards and allocation for the 2026 arts grants. So I wanted to give a little background about the arts grants program. It has some particular goals that I wanted to share. The arts grants are intended to provide meaningful arts engagement for all ages and all abilities across our community. We also hope that the arts grants will help celebrate our community's cultural diversity, cultivate creative and a vibrant arts community, and support local arts and culture organizations and artists. So really supporting our creative economy and our creative ecosystem. And we are currently making arts grants through two open programs, which the grant recommendations tonight include both. One is arts partnerships, and these are intended to support our local nonprofit organizations that are singularly focused on arts and culture and heritage in our community. They may request up to 10% of their operating budget or a maximum of $25,000. And then arts projects are intended to support arts projects and programs that are really to benefit the community, and they can be delivered by arts organizations or other organizations that don't have arts as their primary focus, but that want to use arts as a tool to reach the community. And the max request for those projects is $5,000. So as the applicants are filling out our application and the Arts Commission is evaluating the applications, they're really focusing on three main criteria. And the first one, which is really the most important one and weighted the most heavily, is public benefit. So all of the applications really need to demonstrate meaningful efforts to create community participation in arts and culture. and to reach diverse audiences. The second criteria is artistic value, and we're intentional in saying value versus sort of quality. We want the program to be valuable to the community, and so it should be well-conceived, and it should have art as the primary component, and it should really be focusing on creating meaningful engagement. And then the last criteria is feasibility and managerial capacity. So, it's not super duper easy to contract with the city. So we want to make sure that the groups that are receiving grants are able to contract with the city, provide the materials that we require to do that, and that their budgets that they're presenting are very realistic, and that they have somehow shown that they are getting community support or involvement in the creation of their project. So tonight, the grants that were included in the Exhibit A with the staff memo show $125,000 worth of support for 22 arts and culture projects and 5 arts partnerships. Again, those are the ones that are general operating support to our cultural organizations. And administration is recommending the support of those recommendations as proposed by the Arts Commission. And then I just wanted to show you sort of the breakdown. The Arts Commission does consider this as they're deliberating how the funding is spread among the different types of arts engagement. So you can see it's pretty well delivered across many different ways of participating in arts and culture.
Ms. Duke, may I ask you a question?
Yeah.
That 125, how did we arrive at 125 and what did we do last year?
So last year, we also allocated $125,000. We arrived at that number partially because the admissions tax, which is what funds the Municipal Arts Fund, has been receiving about $200,000 worth of funding in the last couple of years, especially reduced amount since we went through the pandemic. And we still want to be able to support our public art projects and other activities that the arts program does, like run the creative district. So it was a large enough number that we felt like could be supportive with this program, but I will note it is $50,000 less than we provided in 2024. And it is even more less than we did pre-pandemic. So this funding program has taken a pretty large reduction, and we're just working our way through it. Fortunately, we do have additional funding for arts and culture organizations coming through at the county level through the Doors Open legislation. So that has helped to some degree. It certainly helped some of our local groups, but there are still groups that are not eligible for those funds. So, yeah, just something to consider. Thank you for asking.
Thanks for that explanation.
So the 2026 Arts Grant funding recommendations, to be a bit more detailed, these are the 5 that are recommended for arts partnerships. Village Theater, Literary Nights. I do want to call out Literary Nights. It was a program that was initially a project and morphed into a partnership support recommendation, and it actually is something where a group of artists worked over a couple of years to form a nonprofit. They've received significant for culture funding just this past year, and so this is a nice success story of something that kind of germinated from our arts project support. Culture Tug, also a brand new arts organization, and then the History Museums and Master Course Eastside. And then the project grants, lots of things there that hopefully you're familiar with, as well as some new projects. And we did receive about 20% of the applications were brand new to us. There were many more that we wanted to fund that we were not able to fund just simply because of that delta between available funds and the amount requested.
Can you talk about the Village Theater? And that grant recommendation is, I think, lower than I've ever seen for the Village Theater.
It is. So last year, Village Theater received 22,500 or 750,000. So this is a reduction from that. And at one time, they were receiving over $50,000 a year from the city of Issaquah. They do receive LTAC funding, so they are getting additional funds from the city. One of the reasons, and everyone had a lot of deliberation about this and kind of heartburn over it, because they're such an important cultural anchor for the city and such an important part of our creative district. You know, they're our largest arts and culture employer in the city, but they are also benefiting greatly from the Doors Open funding. So that's general operating support, and they have a very large budget, and that money is based on budget. So they are receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars from the county through that program. And the commission just felt like, given the trade-offs of funding more small projects and hopefully incubating more groups, it was worth it and that they would understand. So it's hard decisions. And so,
May I ask how much
Yeah.
they get from LTAC?
you know, I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say it's like $500,000
I
or
see.
more.
And how long-
I'm sorry, from LTAC. I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
thinking
not
Doors
from
Open.
Open Doors.
You know, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I think the maximum grants from LTAC are they 25 or 15? So I think they get one of the maximum grant amounts.
Okay.
I'm happy to get that information to you.
Yeah, I mean, I realize this is literally a drop in the bucket of their overall budget,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more just, you know, we are incredibly lucky to have them, as you say, an anchor in the
Yeah.
arts community locally. And there's 100 cities that would give their eye teeth to have,
Yes.
the Village Theater. So I always view this as, a recommitment of our engagement with them. And so it concerns me to keep dropping that number down.
Yeah, and I think, again, the conversation around this with the Arts Commission was very robust this year, and there was a lot of concern, and probably this was one of the few that there was conflict over, the decision. So, yeah, it was just a really tough.
But I
Yeah.
assume you gave the commission a ceiling of 125, right?
Correct.
But we, as a council, writing checks and whatnot, do not have that same requirement, right? Like we could, if we wanted to,
That is correct. Yeah.
spend more than that. Okay, thank you.
And then I can just go to the timeline. So just to give you an idea of how we arrived here, the application was released in September, and the applications were due October 30th. The Arts Commission, because of the sort of challenging decision-making, decided to take 3 instead of 2 meetings of theirs to talk through the recommendations. And so they did review in November, December, and January at their meetings. Then we're here this evening to provide those recommendations to you. Hopeful to be on an agenda in February to have them move forward, and then we would immediately start contracting. All funded or projects, programs, organizations get a site visit, and also we collect a good amount of data. We ask organizations up front how they conduct an evaluation to show success, and then we collect that information from them. So again, the direction that we're seeking tonight is for you to let us know how to move forward on the award and allocation of the 2026 arts grants. And I'm happy to take additional questions.
Councilmember Nichols, you look poised with a question.
I'm ready, yeah. And just process-wise, help me. So we'll have a deliberative phase after this for,
Correct, we're not at the deliberative phase yet, we're still at the question.
all right, thank you. So first question is if it would be possible to, when this is brought back to council and as an ongoing practice, provide the actual grants themselves unless there's confidential information on salaries or something. I don't know what would be in there. And two reasons for that. One is, I think it's good to be able to dig into the details if we want to. And secondly, from the perspective of someone who's written many grants myself, it's good to be able to see examples of what gets funded and what doesn't, and have some good examples to help you when you're applying to see what types of things the city likes to see funded and how it likes that information, even just structurally, how to present these things. I think that would be very helpful to future applicants. So is that broadly possible? I appreciate
Yeah.
there's details, but.
Absolutely. In past years, we have included all of the grants with the packet. Each grant, we had 38 this year, and each grant is 5 or 6 pages long. So just for keeping the packet manageable, we didn't include them, but I do get requests from organizations. I also, do make phone calls to all the organizations that are not funded to have conversations, and I do often provide, they are often seeking an example of a successful application that they might learn from, so we provide all of that, but happy to include it.
Great. Yeah, I think it would be nice. Disk space is cheap, so I don't think anybody's printing these things anymore.
True.
Second question is possibly related to that, but one of the things I noticed is I think that there were no individual artists that were funded. I believe those are, the individual artists can apply. It's a little hard to tell from the list, but I think that's the case. So I just wanted to know, when you were reviewing these, did you see were there any structural issues as far as how the process was conducted that might have precluded or made it more difficult for individual artists to succeed, I suppose? And is this a trend? Has this been the case in previous years as well? Or if it certainly could be a one-off, I don't know. So.
Yeah, it is actually a bit of a one-off. We typically do support 2 or 3 individual artist projects a year. So, I think it's just the particular group that we had this year. And sometimes the organizations are not actually organizations, they are individual artists doing work as something. So, for instance, the Youth Art Fair is not an individual artist, but it is a youth art team. So those are all individual artists that there's 3 or 4 of them that are working together. So sometimes it's also hard to tell what is an artist team versus an organization.
Okay, understood. Okay, that's all for my questions.
Great, thank you.
I don't have any other questions, so once again, for third time's the charm, do we have any members of the public online?
No, we do not.
All right, we can move to deliberation. Councilmember Nichols?
Yeah, I may need some help from a process side of this, but I think it would be nice to see some options presented to council that are at slightly different budget levels. To Deputy Council President Martz's comments that you likely wanted them with a ceiling that seems quite reasonable and probably the best way to approach this. I suspect that there were some runners up. It would be nice to know who those are and what the second set of proposals may be. Again, I may need help on the process side of things with how that actually how we would go about that, but that's something that I think would be useful to see. And I'm coming at that from the angle that I'm concerned that our arts funding is decreasing over time. I see these as critical. I mean, many of these even delve into human services, frankly, too. Like there's crossover at some point.
For sure, absolutely.
And I would hope that we can be deliberate about that if we have to, and not accidentally slide into that because of previous budget decisions that were made.
And if I may just add to that, so we're just at this point with the arts program trying to live within our means. So knowing that our funding source is the municipal the admissions tax that comes into the municipal arts fund, that is our primary source of funding. We do seek additional grants, and we do receive some, but often they are for specific things like the Creative District are doing, a recent example would be doing the public art in the plazas at the Senior Center and Pedestrian Park. So grants, are challenging to just put into our sort of operating budget. But we've been trying to live within our means, and unfortunately, our revenue stream is just decreased because of movie attendance. People just don't go to the movie as frequently as they used to. So we are hopeful that we can continue to find additional revenue streams, and Jeff and I have been exploring some other options, but I think we're kind of in a challenging budget cycle right now, and that's really just kind of where we are. Prior to 2025, the council did give additional general fund dollars to the arts fund to help kind of boost the ability of us to do programming and granting. But right now we're in just kind of an austere moment.
Yeah, and
So-
I respect that. I think my preference would be to have some options presented based on your best assessment of what would be the next tier. And if possible, some options to fund that, general fund or otherwise. I would hate to see a decline in movie revenues be what kills art funding in the city. Like we may just need to think creatively of other sources, and bring that up for discussion.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very good point. I'm still struggling a little bit to understand what the total amount of revenue is into this fund and its relationship. You said that the difference between the total amount in the fund and 125 is what we want to spend on specific individual art, is that right?
On public art.
Sorry,
So,
public art.
So, for instance, we just wrapped more utility boxes. That has a cost. And then we're planning to do a couple of murals this year. So it's sort of a balance. The program has a public art portfolio. We also have to maintain and repair public art as the year goes along. So the budget is divided between the public art piece and this granting, as well as programming that the Arts Commission does, like the Chalk Art Festival in the summer. So it's just sort of balancing those other items.
Got it. So this might be a good topic to bring up at, I don't know, a leadership retreat, as to the overall health of our arts funding.
Agreed. Yeah, thank you.
And you're telling me basically that if I wanted to give the Village Theater another 10, you'd have to take 10 away
From somewhere else.
from some
Yeah.
public art?
Yeah, which that's about the cost of a mural, for example.
Got it. Autumn, you look like you have something you want to say.
Just seeking clarity if you're looking for options that stay within the budget of the art fund that was adopted by council, or?
I don't think I necessarily am.
Okay.
Now I'm confused, because I thought the dollar amount was based on what was coming in through the tax. But now you're saying that this amount came from council direction?
Well, it is a special fund, and so it is part of the annual, or now biannual budget package, and we do have to do a bit of estimating, but the estimating is based on what the admissions tax has been trending, and it has been pretty accurate.
So good faith effort to predict
Yeah.
what we're going to get, not because we arbitrarily said 125.
Right,
Okay.
right.
It's my understanding too, we reduced funding to the arts grants program by 60,000 in this current budget. Is that correct, each year?
In 2025, it was reduced, yeah, because of those. So during the pandemic and prior to the pandemic, the arts program had done a pretty good job of maintaining a robust fund balance, which was one of the things that enabled us to take part in the Northwest Trolls project and actually have a troll. And so we were keeping kind of a fund balance, but then during the pandemic, we really kind of ate through our fund balance. So now we're just kind of living off of our paycheck, and our paycheck has decreased, so.
Director Watley?
Yeah,
Sorry, if I could just add, great conversation. Thank you so much for the questions. I guess I just would want to put a finer point on this. As arts manager, Amy Dukes does an amazing job of, as we've continued to see these diminished revenues, this has been a conversation that she and I have had a lot of. We've had some conversations as we've gone through biennial budget processes that we really are increasingly concerned. Reliance on one single revenue source that industry has fundamentally changed post-pandemic in terms of admissions tax is something that we really, I guess, robustly look forward to having a conversation to say we really think finding some alternative funding sources and revenue sources to augment and add to admissions tax would be extremely beneficial. But I guess I'm stating a little bit of the obvious there. I just want to give a kudos to Amy and the work she does with the Arts Commission, and knowing as we've had to make reductions through some hard budget cuts, still really trying to find smart investments into this community for arts, even though we've had to do it in a diminished way. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Watley, and thank you, Ms. Dukes, as always, for marshaling this effort. I'll just say, yeah, I think we need to have, I will say for Autumn and Jeff's benefit, we need to have a conversation about this. You know, we are a city. We are not a suburb. We are not a place where, you know, people just happen to live, right? We're a real city. And for me, always, our commitment to the arts is a big part of what makes us a real city. And so, you know, seeing these challenges really makes me want to have that conversation. Things are tight everywhere, money is tight everywhere, but, you know, arts are one of those areas where a small difference in dollars can have a big difference. You know, it would be horrible to think if we had, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 years ago not been able to do the Troll because of, you know, a small difference in dollars, something that brings so much joy to people both in our town and outside our town. So I, you know, hope if as part of a conversation like that, we fold in the conversation about LTAC and we fold in the conversation about the county funding and where that's going, and are we getting, there's always the question of are we getting our fair share of county funding. Sounds like there's at least 2 of us that would love to have that conversation. Councilmember Nichols.
Yeah, and this might be asking for too much, but even at a high level, it would be nice to understand some of the just roughly impacts of what we think some of these funding are from an investment perspective, even financially. I would suspect that the money that we spent on the Troll for the community, this is a weird sentence to say, but that in terms of tourism and additional business generated by that, I mean, it's a good investment, I think. And that's a large visible example of a single thing, but I think that same concept likely applies to some of the other things that I see that are in this grant list. I mean, that are well-attended public events that bring people to our businesses on Front Street, and that likely generate quite a bit of economic activity in and of themselves. I don't have a clear ask with that statement because I don't want to make a lot of work on economic analysis, et cetera. But if there's some way to communicate that that doesn't require a ton of economics, basically, to get there, it would be nice to know.
I can provide some data. We did participate in an economic impact study for the East Side. That's just a few years old, so I can certainly provide that. And then the numbers are, as you would guess, quite impressive.
Great, that would be great to include when we discuss.
Great. For the issue at hand right now, the plan that was presented for us, are we good to move forward as recommended by the administration?
I am, yep.
I am as well. Autumn, anything else you need from us? Do you need a motion? You know, I also
Consent.
realized, we didn't do a motion on the first measure either.
We have clarity on the first motion. Yeah, we're looking for guidance. Typically, this is presented on consent.
You want to say something in council, don't you?
I don't necessarily want to say something, but I do think it should be brought up for discussion that that we should be aware. This is the kind of number that I think could seem very small in a larger budget discussion, but when discussed on its own, I think the impacts of decreased funding could be more visible, and I suspect alternate opinions may emerge.
So do you want to have a discussion in council, or do you want to have, like, I can, in my committee report, I can specify this topic and the fact that we asked the administration to bring it back at a more broad conversation at a future time, or we can have a discussion on this particular item.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that clarification. I think, yeah, if you bring it up in the report and make that clear, and then there will be stuff brought back, yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Got it.
that's what I'll plan on
Thank you.
doing.
Yeah.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you. And with that, that was the last item on the agenda. Do you have anything for good of the order, Councilmember Nichols? Well done on your first committee meeting.
Thank you.
Well, you came well prepared and you had lots of questions. With that, we are adjourned.